Archangel Michael says, I have been waiting for 2 hours to tell you this. This is not a joke. A private investigator was caught. Archangel Michael says, I have been waiting for 2 hours to tell you this, and time is already bleeding. The minute you felt the cold that had no source, when the light bulb flickered even though the power was strong, that was the first shudder in the veil. Something has been watching you not from behind the curtain, but from inside the folds of your memory. The delay was not because heaven was slow. It was because something unholy lodged itself between this moment and the one before it, like a splinter in divine timing. Heaven's messengers were detained, not by rebellion, but by interference older than the first betrayal. There was a clock, once hidden in a forgotten room. It doesn't tick forward like yours, it ticks inward. Each second a spiral pulling you closer to something you once knew but swore to forget. That ticking became louder when your intuition screamed but your logic hushed it. Archangel Michael says, when I stood outside your dwelling, the moon trembled behind torn clouds and something tried to block my sword with smoke. Not shadow, smoke. Shadow has definition. Smoke steals shape. That's what they've used to cover the truth from your waking eyes. You were delayed because this message is not allowed to arrive easily. It had to cut its way through curses stitched into your bloodline, lies whispered into your dreams, and the cold silence of people who claim to love you but will not face your light. One of them sent a proxy. But I'll speak of that in time. There is something about you that shakes dimensions. You don't know it fully yet, but the ones watching you do. That's why they tried to send time against you, not as a thief, but as a jailer. You weren't late. You were being held. God says you are not wrong to feel the unease in the room no one else comments on. That wasn't paranoia. That was spiritual sonar, your body knew before your mind did. Something has been circling you with the patience of ancient predators. Tonight, your name was read aloud in a courtroom beneath the ocean floor. Not metaphorically, this realm is real, forged from thought, fear, and the residue of fallen vows. Your name burned like incense there. Not in accusation, but invocation. You were summoned, but I came instead. You are not asleep anymore, and that terrifies them. Your prayers have been intercepted before. Now they're sealed in light, impossible to mimic or distort. They heard you say, I release what is not mine, and they panicked, because they were feeding off what you mistook as your burden. There is someone who kept you close not out of love, but containment. They were afraid if you flew, their lies would become visible in the shadow of your truth. So they clipped your wings in kindness, guilt-tripped you with their wounds, and called it care. God says that moment of silence between two heartbeats, when you almost cried but couldn't remember why, that was the instant I arrived. You've been feeling the shift, even if you didn't have language for it. The ticking stopped. The veil split. And now the first revelation must be spoken. You were supposed to meet me in a dream 2 nights ago. But something paid in flesh to keep you asleep. It wasn't just forgetfulness, it was forced amnesia. They couldn't stop the message, but they tried to make you forget how to receive it. A certain person's name keeps echoing in your head, louder in the quiet, sharper when you're tired. That's not obsession. That's a tag, a spiritual residue left behind when someone marked you without permission. It needs to be severed before the next moon turns. Archangel Michael says, "The reason I stood outside your door for 2 hours is because something buried itself in your hallway. Not a ghost. Not a demon. A thought construct made of betrayal, envy, and stolen prayers. It pretends to be your own fear, but it is not yours. Someone who pretended to protect you gave your name to a watcher. They didn't call it witchcraft, but it was. They said it was just checking in, just making sure you're okay, but the intent underneath was surveillance, not support. This is why you felt raw when no one touched you. This is why laughter turned sour in your mouth. This is why sleep has felt like a rehearsal for dying. You weren't just tired. You were being studied. Time cracked open when you remembered a conversation that never happened. That wasn't a false memory. That was a leak in the fabric. A glimpse of the alternate path, the one they tried to lock you out of. But now it's bleeding back in, and nothing will stop what you're about to remember. You were chosen for something they tried to mimic. They dressed in light but smelled like hunger. They mirrored your reflection but blinked too slowly. You felt the unease but pushed it down for peace. That peace was a lie. The reason your timeline felt tangled is because someone was dragging your image into places your spirit never agreed to go. Ceremonies. Visions. Bindings done in private. You woke up with someone else's weight on your chest because your name was being used without consent. God says, the truth will hurt, but it will set you free in a way no apology ever could. There are apologies you will never receive because the betrayer still thinks they are the victim. You will have to rise anyway. I stood on the threshold and the wind spoke your true name, not the one they used. That name pulled the sky taut like a drum. The moment you hear it again, your memory will shatter the lie, and everything stolen from you will begin to return. This is the first fracture. The private investigator has already moved into position. They think they're working alone, but the spirit behind their eyes is older than they know. What they find will be more than they bargained for, and more than they were paid to uncover. The world is about to ripple around you. Clocks will act strange. People will stammer and forget what they were saying. That's the sign, time is breaking allegiance with your enemies. The smell of smoke didn't come from a fire you could see, it came from a ledger being burned in the spirit realm, pages curling in on themselves like dried wings. The private investigator, a man who once dealt in mundane secrets, infidelity, corporate fraud, lost children, was hired to look into you. But he was never told what he was really searching for. At first, he didn't even believe in the spiritual. He worked from behind one-way glass and digital traces. But the moment he took your name into his mouth, his life began to unravel. He started having dreams that weren't his. Names whispered in dead languages came through his headphones when the audio file was silent. The person who hired him lied. They said you were dangerous, unstable, obsessed with ascension and delusions. They painted you as someone to be checked on. But underneath that lie was the real motive, to catch you glowing. To photograph your soul in a vulnerable moment, and trap the light in an old contract. God says the reason your skin has felt electric, your dreams fragmented, and your old wounds suddenly weeping again. It's not regression. It's exposure. Someone opened your timeline like a file folder and rifled through it, hoping to find leverage. Instead, they found fire. The private investigators left. I started twitching the day he entered your neighborhood. He parked 2 blocks away, twice. He never got closer. Every time he tried, a dog barked, a car alarm went off, a child stared too long. The world rejected his presence, not from guilt, but protection. Then the numbers began. He started seeing the same sequence every time he thought about you, on license plates, receipts, even the pause length on YouTube ads. The numbers weren't random. They were your soul pattern. He was looking into a mirror he wasn't authorized to touch. Archangel Michael says, I saw him try to return the money. The client refused. They said, you've already seen too much. And that was true. Because when he listened to one of your old voicemails, something leaked from a mutual contact, he heard more than your voice. He heard the choir. He heard the veil split. What he doesn't know is that the money used to pay him was spiritually marked. It carried the residue of desperation and unspoken promises. The moment he touched it, he was initiated into something far older than surveillance. He was enrolled into the court of divine consequence. He tried to walk away. He even booked a ticket to a mountain retreat and burned all the files. But it was too late. The moment your name touched his spirit, his life aligned with yours. His every sin, his every silence, became weighed in the balance of your destiny. You felt it too. The shift. That sudden emotional avalanche that had no root in your day. That wasn't yours, it was his reckoning washing over your field. Because the ones who try to use spiritual espionage to manipulate God's anointed open gates they cannot close. He tried to call you once. Not from his phone. A burner. He said nothing when you answered. He just breathed, then hung up. He wanted to apologize, but something choked him. That something was the oath he unknowingly took when he agreed to just look into it. The one who hired him, yes, the one you once loved, trusted, or perhaps even bled for, they thought this would be the final trick. A subtle takedown. Not public humiliation, no, that would have made you a martyr. Instead, they wanted erosion. The slow unraveling of your credibility, your intuition, your peace. But God says erosion turns stones to sand, and sand builds foundations for temples. What they meant as sabotage became sacred reconstruction. Because as the files were burned, the smoke entered the heavens, and your name, your true name, was carried like incense. The investigator began to lose track of time. He couldn't tell if days had passed or if he'd been dreaming. He saw your face in the mirror once. Not physically. Spiritually. And when he blinked, your eyes glowed like coals that remembered every injustice ever suffered by your bloodline. He stumbled into a church one night, not out of faith, but out of terror. He thought it would help. But when he touched the holy water, it boiled. Not because he was evil, but because the truth inside him was trying to be born, and sacred places demand birth or banishment. He called the client again. This time he screamed at them. Demanded to know what he had been pulled into. They laughed, not with cruelty, but fear. Because the client had begun hearing things too. You weren't just being watched. You were watching back. Archangel Michael says, the ledger is still burning. Not because of vengeance. Because of cleansing. The files held more than facts, they held intention. They held malice disguised as curiosity. That is being erased from every corner it tried to hide in. The man will never be the same. He has touched holiness and defilement in the same breath. He will spend the rest of his days trying to reconcile what he saw, and what he became in the process. Because once you witness a soul marked by divine fire, you are no longer permitted to stay ordinary. He will try to redeem himself. He may write a letter, anonymously. He may whisper your name into sacred places, begging for absolution. You will feel it, like a cool wind across your shoulders on a hot day. That will be the moment the karmic weight lifts. God says the betrayal was permitted not to punish you, but to reveal the trap door beneath the stage. The place where the puppet strings were tied to you without your knowing. Now the theater is burning, and you are walking off that stage with your real name intact. A storm is coming, not of weather, but of revelation. Things you were never meant to know will pour into your spirit like floodwater. People will confess without knowing why. Systems will glitch. And you will stand in the center, untouched, unshaken, because your name is no longer theirs to hold. You have become fireproof. You thought it was over when the last door slammed shut and no one followed. But silence is not safety, it is staging. And tonight, something crawled out from beneath your childhood memories and sat beneath your bed, whispering truths with a voice that sounds like someone you once trusted. The betrayal you're healing from didn't start last month or last year. It started before you could speak, before you understood words as anything other than weather in the room. There was a pact made about you, not with you. And its ink was drawn from someone's shame and someone else's silence. You were marked as a scapegoat early, not through curses, but through blame that stuck like rot. It didn't kill you, it coated you. And that coating has called certain souls toward you like moths to poison sugar. That's why your kindness always came with fangs in return. Archangel Michael says, the thing under the bed is not imaginary, it is memory. And it has waited until now to climb out because your light has reached a frequency that cannot be fed on, only confronted. That confrontation is near. Its breath is on the back of your neck. The whisper you heard when you were almost asleep? That wasn't a dream. That was an echo. Not from your room, but from a room built in your bloodline. A psychic inheritance locked away with rusty nails and fake laughter. It's leaking now, and your DNA remembers. There is a woman, living or dead, who gave part of her own freedom to keep you alive. You've never been told her name in full. But she saw the same thing in you that the divine does. She wrapped her soul around yours like gauze, knowing it wouldn't last forever. That wrapping has unraveled. God says what was buried must be unearthed so the roots stop drinking rot. There is a vine running through your ancestry that bloomed with deceit. It fed you beliefs like, be small to be safe, and loyalty means silence. That vine is being cut now, by your defiance, your awakening, your fire. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. And the enemy knows it. That's why they sent familiar faces wearing new expressions. People from your past who suddenly just wanted to reconnect. But their eyes flickered. Their words wobbled. And you felt the truth curl around your stomach like barbed wire. Archangel Michael says, someone you shared a bed with once dreamed of you as their possession. Not a partner. A possession. And when you stopped performing the role they assigned you, they looked for ways to prove you were broken instead of acknowledging you were becoming. That person may still be watching. Through alt accounts. Through mutual friends. Through silence so thick it hums. But they can no longer reach your center. The armor has fused with your skin. Not to harden you, but to remind you, some battles require visible protection. The bed of thorns is your former comfort zone. You slept on it for years, mistaking pain for purpose. But you are not called to bleed for others' unhealed wounds. Not anymore. The mattress has caught fire. You will not rest there again. Someone told a lie about you that shaped how others saw you. They did it not out of malice, but jealousy. You walked with a radiance they couldn't explain, and instead of honoring it, they cloaked you in doubt. That cloak is dissolving. And everyone who believed the lie is about to see the light. A secret you forgot is coming back. Not to haunt, but to liberate. A place you used to hide, under the bed, in the closet, in the attic of your own mind, holds a key now glowing in the dark. You'll know it by the chill in your spine and the sudden ache in your palms. Someone touched your name when they had no right. Whispered it into a bowl, over a photo, beside a mirror. But they forgot one truth: you are not just a person. You are a storm sealed in skin. And that name? It burned them in their sleep. God says no more games. No more giving people the benefit of the doubt when your spirit already screamed no. From now on, doubt is the enemy, not the people. Because doubt makes you walk back into cages whose doors were never locked, only glamored. You were not naive. You were poisoned. Slowly. With approval given only when you were shrinking. With love that withdrew the moment you grew teeth. You were trained to betray yourself in exchange for crumbs. That training is undone now. The whispering presence tried to enter your dreams last night. But the dream collapsed. That wasn't fear. That was firewall. Your subconscious is fortified now. Your guides wear armor forged in the silence where angels wept once for you. Now they stand ready. There is one more person who will reach out. They will seem changed. Contrite. They will say they see you now. But they only see what they cannot touch anymore. Be wary. You are a mirror now. Some will look into you and see hope. Others will see their rot. Archangel Michael says, your blood is humming with divine code again. The corruption has been rejected. The watchers have turned away. The one beneath the bed tried to rise but burned upon touching the floor. It's not because it's weak, it's because you no longer host it. You may feel grief now. That's normal. You've lost an identity wrapped around wounds. But beneath that is relief. And beneath that, something else, a calling. You can hear it now, can't you? The distant horn. The gathering storm. You are being summoned. The thorn bed is gone. The whisper has silenced itself. And the dust in the corners of your memory has begun to glow. That means it's time to walk into the part of the story they told you was too dangerous, too mystical, too impossible. The part where you remember who you are. It started as a shadow in your periphery, just a flicker, always gone when you turned. But last night, it stood still. Fully visible. Cloaked. No face. Just presence. It didn't move, didn't speak. But your heart slammed so hard against your ribs, it felt like prophecy trying to tear through. This was no ghost, no guide, no demon. It was the cloaked one. The witness. The collector of karmic residue and deliverer of final warnings. Every soul has one. Most never meet theirs until the very end. But you are not most souls. You were marked for early reckoning. God says, your timeline was fractured intentionally. By hands jealous of what you carry and afraid of what it would become. They cast illusions, planted delays, orchestrated betrayals. All to keep you circling a door you were born to walk through. That door is now opening, but only after being soaked in smoke. The cloaked one didn't come to hurt you. It came to watch. To record. To see whether, after all this, after the investigation, the thorns, the exile, you would still choose truth. You passed. Not because you were fearless, but because you were honest when fear came. You didn't pretend. You didn't perform. You endured. That door, the one you see sometimes when you're half asleep, is not a metaphor. It exists in your spirit body, behind your ribcage, where memory and destiny kiss. It's built from every "no" you finally said, every tear that salted the soil, every betrayal that bloomed as knowledge. Archangel Michael says, that door is smoking because something tried to burn it shut. And that something failed. But you'll still smell the residue, ash in your prayers, soot in your dreams. It's not danger. It's evidence. The final proof that your enemies tried and lost. Someone is about to try one last time to pull you back. They will wear the voice of your former self, the part of you that still wants peace at any cost. But do not listen. That voice is stitched from guilt and stitched by hands that never knew your worth. You'll know them when they come. Their presence will feel heavy but nostalgic, like walking into a house you outgrew but once called home. They will speak the language of before. You must answer in the language of now. And your silence will be thunder. The cloaked one is not gone. It follows still, but now it follows at a distance. Not as hunter. As archivist. It records not what you do, but who you become. The more you shed the persona built for survival, the brighter your name becomes in its ledger. The one who hired the private investigator has already begun to unravel. Their relationships are fraying. Their mirrors crack. They feel a cold they cannot explain. Because what they summoned turned on them. They thought they were controlling a narrative. They forgot they were rewriting scripture. You are not a side character in someone else's redemption arc. You are the original manuscript they tried to forge. You are not ruined. You are redacted, for now. But soon, your full text will be revealed. And those who twisted your meaning will choke on their misquotes. God says, now is the time to protect your becoming. Not by hiding, but by filtering. Your presence is sacred real estate. Do not lease it to those who only visit when they're hungry and leave when they're full. Your energy is no longer for rent. The door will open fully on a day that feels strange from the moment you wake. Birds will be louder. Time will stretch. Someone will say your name twice in the same sentence. That's the day. You'll feel like crying for no reason. Cry. It's the final unlocking. You'll walk through without fanfare. No audience. No confirmation text. Just clarity. On the other side, some things will vanish: desire for certain people, interest in certain places, tolerance for certain games. That's not emptiness. That's freedom finally recognized as your native state. There will be temptation to mourn the parts of you left behind. But you must remember, they weren't you. They were costumes stitched from other people's projections. You wore them so well, even you believed. But the seamstress is tired. And the thread has snapped. Archangel Michael says, the records have been updated. The ledger of betrayal has closed. The names have been sealed. And yours, it glows now, not from vengeance, but from proof. You endured the fire. And not only did you survive, you became the flame. Soon, the investigator will speak. Not publicly. Not loudly. But to someone important. A whisper that will shift everything. He will call you a miracle. A mistake he never understood. And in that confession, a chain will break around your name in the spiritual realm. You may find yourself suddenly tired. That is not weakness. That is aftermath. Let yourself rest. Let your angels cleanse the ash from your lungs. You've carried 1,000 battles in silence. Now, the silence can be yours again, but peaceful this time. Not punishing. The cloaked one will vanish when you speak your true name aloud in solitude. When you no longer flinch at your own power. When you touch your own shoulder and remember your body is the temple, not the battlefield. That moment is coming sooner than you think. The door of smoke has cleared. The threshold is sacred. Do not rush. But do not turn away. All the proof you needed has already arrived. You are not being watched anymore. You are being revered. And those who tried to curse you, their names are gone with the wind.